For Honor is about to release one of the biggest expansions it has ever had in its history. It's getting new game modes, a whole new faction, and as always more customization. However, in the community there is still an uproar on For Honor's foundation. It's balancing. A decent amount of content creators is criticizing the current situation in For Honor. It has been 19 months since its release, and the game still doesn't feel balanced nor fair for many players. We can still find people abusing the strength of certain characters or even abusing fundamental flaws of the game to win. Why is For Honor so difficult to balance? What do we need to solve this issue? What can we wish for, and what can the devs do? This vid's goal is to go through the discussion and analyze For Honor's balancing in great depth. I will start by explaining why balancing is so important for such a competitive game and why the lack of balance has led us to such a worried community. In the next part, I'm going to talk about For Honor's biggest balance issues, how the game solved these issues, and what I would recommend to apply on For Honor. Prep the popcorn, enjoy the ride, and make this video heard so the devs can take it into consideration. There are tons of fighting games out there, and many of them have strong communities that stay loyal to the game. We see many content creators, competitions, even world championships dedicated to enjoying the whole experience. To answer the question why balancing is important, we first have to know what we want to get to, what our goal is. For Honor is and has been, since its release, an incredibly engaging fantasy where you can play 3 legendary factions with historical background. It offers the opportunity to pick a character, to learn and to grow with him, and at some point to fight against the best. For Honor offers a very sophisticated fighting mechanic, more realistic than most other games out there, absolutely unique for its genre. It goes even further and pushes historical scenarios to really feel the immersion into medieval warfare. This has the potential to work, be competitive and fun for everyone involved. However, the game needs a good mechanical foundation and every player must have a chance to win if he's good enough. This is the most important requirement for a game to be competitive and fun. This is what balance in For Honor means and what every player wishes for when entering the battlefield. In a game where you have so many different characters with so many different abilities, timings and damage, it's impossible to get a perfectly balanced system. And to be honest, this is not what this game needs. This game needs a perfectly understood balance system that allows every character to be viable and fun to play against any other character. We can all just shout, nerf this, buff that, and it's useful and funny at times, but you should always keep a drop of humility to dissolve your salt. Cause balancing is, hands down, the most difficult thing to get right in a game like For Honor. For Honor has come a long way since its launch, and by any means, the devs have not been twiddling their thumbs. We have had several reworks, fixes and system changes, but we are not quite there yet. For Honor has many layers and many points it can improve on. I will only focus on duels and basic game mechanics, since this is the foundation of everything else. Only if the mechanics work as intended, we can balance fighting overall. First thing on the list is spacing and lock-unlock mechanic. In most fighting games, space is simple to understand. You can walk forward, backwards, and your space is limited by the end of the screen. Not only are most fighting games 2D, but space management itself is intrinsically part of the fighting experience. Your offense options are defined by the range as well as your combos and punishes, and you can control space so delicately that it manifests as an important skill in the game called space management. However, many games where dueling plays a big role don't really have clear defined space. Take Chivalry, Mount and Blades, or League of Legends even. For Honor though handles this game element in a very unique way. Even if it has large areas to fight on, it tries to create a fighting space within the mechanic guard stance. During guard stance, or said differently, while locked on, you have feints, blocks and basically all attacks at your disposal, but you move slowly and you cannot run. On the other hand, while unlocked, or not in guard stance, you move faster, you can run, but you only have a few running attacks to work with. For Honor tries to separate map positioning and fighting, so it allows for sophisticated interactions within a mobile-like game mode, like Dominion for example. But this guard stance mechanic turns out to be quite tricky. Many issues with it have already been dealt with, but until today, the line that says, now we lock on or now we unlock is fuzzy. Using unlock mechanics during a fight brings great advantages, and sadly, can also reduce the fighting versatility of the game overall. Because unlocked running and rolling evades nearly every attack you can do while you stay locked on, there is no real punishment to a player that decides to run away from you. On top of that, There are multiple running attacks that are extremely strong and difficult to punish. So it appears that many duels are restricted to unlock shenanigans that not only ignore the core fighting of the game, but limit the versatility to a minimum, which is neither fun nor competitive, for most of us anyway. The funny thing is that ranges, tracking and whiff punishing play an essential role in fights too, and that being unlocked provides the best option to controlling space at the same time. To get this mechanic to work out, the line between locked on and unlocked needs to be better defined. Moreover, while in guard stance, you moving toward your opponent should be stronger than him moving away from you. This encourages offensive playstyles which keep fights going. I have listed some ideas on how to solve this in the video description. Feel free to tell me which one is your favorite to implement in the game. Not that I can promise that this will be taken into account by the devs, but providing feedback is always useful. The second big issue in For Honor is its character balance. The distribution of viable moves among the characters is very different, to the point that some are absolutely dull and B or C tier, while others are extremely good and stacked with mix-ups or defensive options. This issue also started long ago and became relevant when the turtle meta was still around. Unlike other fighting games, For Honor's combos, or rather attack chains, are well defined and mostly limited to normal heavies and lights. This setup is interesting because players have to utilize feints to stay unpredictable and to evade counters like parries and dodges into follow-ups. For Honor's fighting momentum is very unique among fighting games, but the setup only works if every character has the means to attack in an unpredictable way. Back then, the options were scarce and counters much stronger. The devs have identified the problem and done some pretty neat reworks since then. Valkyrie and Kensei, for instance, shine now compared to their older model, while others are still in line for that. It's extremely bad with Lawbringer and Shugoki. Shugoki has no way to get through an all-blocking opponent. His viable moveset is restricted to lights, heavies and guard break. The only follow-up is a heavy. Compared to Kensei, who has lights, heavies, guard break, zone, top heavy mix-up into pommel strike, feint guard break, soft feint light or heavy, which then leads to his unblockable mix-up. Lawbringer has the same issue. His shove out of neutral is unsafe, so he only has his normal lights and heavies to work with. If he starts with a heavy, next up in the chain is a light, which is easily punishable. If you start with a light, the rest is easy to block. His unblockable has terrible tracking and can simply be backdodged, so no mix-up potential there. And that's it. The viable moveset in his kit is minuscule. The only thing Lawbringer has going for him is the parry punishes. Shugoki also has his Demon's Embrace, but these are only punishes. If the opponent turtles up, both characters have no means to open him up. With Centurion, it's a similar feeling. On higher level, Sen's unblockable moves are extremely unsafe, so you can only resort to his delayable heavies. And again, that's it. That's how you play Centurion. You basically have to spam heavies because your defense is so bad that as soon as you give a Warlord or a Gladiator time to breathe, you lose. This issue needs to be looked at by the devs. On a fundamental level, every character needs to have multiple offensive options to open up an enemy, and also multiple defensive options to answer to anything that's thrown at them. Compare the moveset of a For Honor character to the moveset of a character from Tekken, for example. Tekken 7 is regarded by many as a very balanced fighting game overall, and the movesets there are huge. If we can maintain the uniqueness of every character, but push them to the level of Kensei, Valkyrie or at least Orochi, every character will be strong and diverse enough to be competitive and fun on higher levels. Now, up to the third and last big issue of For Honor's basic mechanics: the learning curve and skill to power balance. I remember when I showed For Honor to a friend and helped him to get into the game. As a beginner, the balance of For Honor feels absolutely different. Lawbringer's shove on block feels extremely powerful, light spam is very difficult to deal with, and nearly every bash or jab or kick is difficult to dodge. Even up to more advanced players, many don't dodge Lawbringer's shove out of neutral, for example. The game knowledge you need to take in is not only huge, but many players simply have no way to see what's optimal, what's supposed to be punished, or what converts into mix-ups. My friend was thankful that I showed him that. Overall, in For Honor, the skill required to counter is much higher than the skill required to do the attack. This is called imbalance in skill to power, regarding offense and defense in this case. Learning the appropriate counters against one character take already long enough to get to an acceptable level, let alone learning them for each one. It's so tough that frustration along the way is guaranteed, and with even more upcoming characters, this issue is only going to grow more and more. This wouldn't be such a problem if every character could light spam or bash. But if you are a beginner and you play Raider and face Orochis or Conquerors all the time, their offense is just simply harder to punish than yours. It feels unfair and it can be very frustrating because you have to endure such uneven fights because your character choice was different. As I said, you pick a character because of looks, because of style. Why should you get punished for it? In classic fighting games, every character has fast attacks and another scary offense. But on top of that, doing elaborated attacks can be quite difficult because the input and its timing are very complex. Some longer combos might seem impossible to a beginner. Balance-wise, offense is generally stronger than defense, but the skill to pull off a good offense is on a different level than the skill to simply defend. And as countering is basically just attacking, defense as such is never stronger than offense. Now, For Honor as a game concept is rather new, not like 2D fighting games that have evolved over a long time to get to the level they are right now. But it can learn from them, and it should keep track of its skill to power balance, because otherwise the player base won't grow steadily, but only grow and thin out over and over. And the players at the top will more or less be the same people. What needs to be done first is to provide a viable offense for every character, so that player 1 doesn't lose because his character doesn't have fast lights, nor viable unblockables. After that, make sure that every character has multiple options when facing bashes. Centurion, Shugokin or Amusha can only dodge and guard break. Lawbringer's dodge off is terrible to punish bashes, often worse than dodge guard break, which she can't easily do. Give these characters another opportunity to defend against bash spamming and dodge baiting. If the devs can get a hold of these 3 core issues, the game will improve by a lot, and maybe it will see the competitive scene that we have all wished for since its launch. A nice foundation is a core requisite for an intriguing and evolving fighting game. Alright, that's all I wanted to say. For Honor is a hell of a game. We have a long journey behind us and the journey is far from over. In my opinion, the question is not if, but when we will have a well-balanced game. Until then, devs, I hope I helped you somewhat and keep the nice Ubi stream. Dear community, take care, don't get too frustrated, enjoy the ride, keep an open mind, and see you on the battlefield.